Welcome to the HaneyBiz Project with Mark Haney. Mark is a serial investorpreneur and the chief dreaming officer of the HaneyBiz companies. He's working tirelessly to ignite the entrepreneurial revolution and share the inspiring stories of the region's most influential leaders. And now, here's Mark Haney.
All right. This is the HaneyBiz Project, and we are on a mission to ignite the entrepreneurial revolution right here in Sacramento, in our hometown, Marcus. We all know that, some of us small business owners, we're just dabbling, right? We're just kind of, going through the motions a little bit. But some of us are putting it all on the line. We are going all in for our families, all in for our team, and all in for our hometown way of life right here in Sacramento. I'm Mark Haney. Welcome to the HaneyBiz Project. We're entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs, one entrepreneur at a time, one conversation at a time. And that conversation, Marcus, it all starts with one simple question. What's that question?
Are you hanging or are you banging?
Yeah, because if you are hanging, that's cool. It's Saturday morning and you've got to be maybe thinking about doing a little relaxing today, hanging around the house, maybe laying by the pool, maybe a little bit of remnants from Saturday night circulating through the body. Maybe you're going to watch even a little high school football or youth football this weekend.
Maybe a little Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor action.
That's fine. Now, hanging is cool, right? It's okay to use that downtime, but when you are banging, that means you are at your very best. That means you are in your very best, at your very best opportunity, which means going all in, right? Winning. Am I right, Marcus?
Absolutely. Fired up to be here Saturday morning.
Well, thinking about that, now you talked about the McGregor-Mayweather fight. What are your thoughts? Are you all in on the fight?
Yeah, I'm all in. I'm definitely watching. I'm all in on Conor McGregor, too. I think his unorthodox style of fighting is going to take him to the championship. So
okay,
really excited.
Now, sometimes it's about risk and reward, right? If you go all in, then there's got to be a good payback, and I guess the odds are in Mayweather's favor.
They are in Mayweather's favor, but they are going to each get $100 million at the end of this thing. So the purse is always.
So how are you going to do that? Is the question. And as I think about going all in, it makes me think about the Entrepreneurs Organization of Sacramento. It makes me think about high school football. Absolutely. And, the lessons that we learn through athletics, the lessons that we learn on the football field. And, a lot of that is how to go all in. But, in today's day and age, even as in entrepreneurship, sometimes we find ourselves being 2, 3, 4 sport athletes, right?
Absolutely. A couple different helmets, right?
Yeah, so sometimes it's like, do we get ourselves spread too thin and we're really not all in on anything? You ever see that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in high school sports, kids a lot of times go after too many different sporting events and try to master too much and hurts them in scholastics or whatever else. So I would say focus, absolutely.
Focus, yeah. And then in high school, maybe you're still at that stage where you're having some fun and maybe not taking it quite as serious yet. But when you get into owning your own small business, that is also a full contact sport, and there's no messing around. And if you spread yourself too thin, that can be kind of damaging, and it can hinder our growth. But when you go all in, what does that mean when you go all in business? You got a supply business you're building, Marcus. What's it look like for Marcus Haney to go all in? What kind of pain is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm all in on my supply business, Haney Industrial Supply. All in is waking up to the 4:30 emails for requests for quotes. Yeah, Reveille, as we like to call the Marine Corps, absolutely. But it's dedicating every ounce of my mental capacity towards understanding a new industry and how to disrupt it a little bit and get myself in a position to be very successful.
Yeah, but if you're going to disrupt, if you're going to be very successful, you can't do that by dabbling, right, kind of spreading yourself too thin. You've got to find a way to go all in. And we're going to be talking about that today. And as I look around the Mark Tank studio, I can see over in the corner my Frank Gore. I have a chair that has the Frank Gore jersey on it as kind of to remind me of going all in. Because Frank Gore, he falls forward at the end of every run. He plays through the whistle. He goes all in
Trying to get
his
that extra
own way
yard,
every
yeah.
time he touches the ball. And as I see that jersey on that chair, it reminds me that entrepreneurship, like football, can be a game of inches, right? Where every inch matters, falling forward, being all in when the game is on the line, or maybe all the time, even on the small things, finding a way to compartmentalize the small things to get those extra inches. That is so important in life. It's obviously important as we build our small business, and that's what we're talking about today, right? All in, all out, face down, in the mud, ready to get ourselves dirty, and the best way to learn, no question, is by getting in the game, right? And going all in. That's when we discover what we're truly made of, when we really get to know ourselves. But the second best way to learn is spending time with the folks who have actually been on the field, been in the game, fought for those extra inches, and figured out a way to win. Later in the show, we will meet Lance Loveday, the CEO of Closed Loop. Lance is also the president of the Entrepreneurs Organization, where Sacramento entrepreneurs go all in. But coming up after the break, we will learn from a man who has put it all out on the line in creating the nation's largest pool building enterprise. I'm talking about the CEO of Premier Pool and Spa, Mr. Paul Porter. Join the conversation at HaneyBiz.com, courtesy of the 5-Star Bank Group. This is the HaneyBiz Project.
One half a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. Hell yeah. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's gonna make difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's gonna win that inch.
Now, back to the HaneyBiz Project with host Mark Haney.
All right. This is the HaneyBiz Project. Welcome back. This is the part of the show that is presented by the Sun System Technology Group. I'm Mark Haney, and I am joined by the CEO of Premier Pool and Spa, Mr. Paul Porter. How you doing, Paul?
Doing great, Mark.
I'm going to have that mic scooted up to you a little bit so you are speaking at least as loud as I have, at least as loud as I am. And you challenged me there as you came in. You said you were going to speak as fast as I do, too. So let's see if you can keep up with me, Paul. Okay, now, I'd like to have our listeners, I know a little bit about your background, but share with us a little bit about the Premier Pool and Spa story.
You know, first of all, I want to start out, I can't tell you how much I appreciate being here. And when I heard ignite the entrepreneurial spirit, you know, we still live in the greatest country in the world, and we have an opportunity. I have traveled all over the world, and every single time I come back, I say how grateful I am that we have a country that an average person, a guy with a little bit of heart, a little bit of passion, a little bit of desire, a little bit of focus, can do anything, and I'm a perfect example of that.
Well, I want to hear about your story, but I think you make such a good point there. You are helping entrepreneurs all over the country to chase the American dream, chase the dream of building businesses, building pools, and the business are related to the pool industry. Talk to us about that and what that means for you specifically, but what does that mean for these entrepreneurs that you're helping?
I think a lot of people don't know that they're an entrepreneur. They just have a burning in the belly. They know that they can do something different. They know that they want to express their vision, their ideas. They just don't always have they have a vision, the confidence, or the guidance to become that. And that's what I do. I love, you know, a lot of times we have so many people with so many extraordinary stories. One of the great stories I like to tell is a family of 4 kids. You know, he went to BYU. He came out. His family was in the business for 30 years. He was doing $500,000 a year in business. This guy was an intelligent guy, but what he did is what he knew.
Yeah.
But he didn't do what he was capable of becoming. today, Jeff, 6 years later with us, is doing $20 million in business.
Wow, he took his business from $500,000 a year. 6 years later, $20 million in business.
It's the same Jeff. It's the same father. It's the same leader. He's the same guy with the same level of intelligence. But what we did is untapped his drive. And we allowed him to remove the obstacles to see what was possible. And I think today with entrepreneurship is most people don't realize they're dictated by fear instead of what's possible. All they need is a little coaching, what you're doing here today.
What do you think people are so afraid of, Paul?
I think they're afraid of we're conditioned as a society. You know, you're conditioned to go to school. I was raised by a single mother on welfare. So I had no preconceived ideas. So everything that I did, I had to go out there and earn. So nobody put any shackles on me. But right. so often today, you have to go to school, you have to pick out a career, you have to go into college, and you spend a lot of money and a lot of time. You better follow that dream.
Right.
Well, sometimes entrepreneurship is to try things that you don't know what the results are going to be.
Yeah. It's interesting. Today's show is about going all in, and so often today, right, you go through and maybe you're living somebody else's dream, the dream of your mom and dad to get the degree and maybe even go get your master's and get your, go to work for a large corporation or something like that. But something along the way clicks, and it seems to me that the sooner that it clicks, the better. I mean, you could be an older guy my age and it could click, but if you can have that click early, that makes such a difference.
I think people need to find their why, what's important to them, and their why is very rarely, and I know in my particular case, I have 53 franchisees across the country. You would think that people strive for just financial gain. They strive for they strive for quality of life, and what's important to them, they strive for validation. And once they can find that, that's what creates the burning in the belly. That's what creates the passion. And when they can do that without selling their soul, that's when you see amazing results.
So you got your why. You know why you're doing it. You are ready to go all in. You've reached that point in your life where you've decided, I've got to go all in on something. The pool business? I mean, how did you decide to go all in on the pool business, Paul?
Well, we just had come out of the Great Depression.
Okay.
Most people think it was a recession here. In the swimming pool business, from 2008 to 2010, we lost 70% of the entire industry. People that lived their entire lives in this industry, that had toiled, worked for 30 years, they had, they had facilities, they had employees, they had trucks, they lost it all.
Yes.
And they found themselves now closing in on retirement in some cases, if they had a retirement, with no exit strategy.
Yeah. A lot of time, all that is gone.
It's gone. And most of them that stayed in the business were looking for answers. Yeah. They were looking for help. They were receptive and what we had to do is what they didn't have is they didn't have any courage. They didn't have any confidence. So they needed some coaching. They needed to believe in themselves. They needed to create a model that they could do through scalability to go shoulder to shoulder with them so they can create a model of success.
Yeah, so 2008 to let's call it 2010, the home building industry, obviously, maybe 2007 even, as we led into the financial crisis, almost every business was hit, but nobody hit harder than the housing industry and the home building, which means the pool industry. And then as we started coming out of that, let's say 2010, 2011, is that the timing when you went all in?
I did. I actually left a very successful company here in Sacramento that my partner and I, Keith Harbeck, started. And I decided to take my dream, my vision, my why of going out there and taking an industry that was so good to me and helping people that were struggling, that had no confidence anymore. And to go out there, and at that point in time, we didn't even have one working model. We had one office. We didn't have a franchise model. We didn't have systems in place, but I had a dream. And I was passionate about going out there and not teaching necessarily, having people to go shoulder to shoulder with me. And together, through scalability and through kind of a vision and having a unique and solidified story out in the marketplace, that we can change the entire industry.
And how have you changed that industry? Now you have 50 plus franchisees. Where you at? What's the company look like today?
We'll talk monetarily. In 2010, when we started, we were a $30 million company. In 2017, today, we're going to cross $200 million.
Wow, that's incredible.
A 515% increase. What's so astounding about that, I love the numbers, but it's to take those people, like I talked about Jeff, and for guys that were used to mediocre, existence to have extraordinary existence. We are taking market share. The industry's grown 12.5% over
Looks
the
like
last
you've
6 years.
exceeded the industry growth there.
515% when the industry's grown
Wow.
twice. So we're taking market share all over the country by giving the customers what they want, communicating with the customers what they want, underselling, over-delivering our products.
Well, for you, with a customer, now obviously the buyer of the pool is a customer, but you are creating partnerships and alliances with other entrepreneurs and helping them to build their business. How do you select the entrepreneur? How do you make a selection of who to partner with?
It all starts with heart condition and culture and wanting to do the right
Heart
thing.
condition?
Heart condition. It's, you know, you can't teach. I can teach people the swimming pool industry. I can teach them the financial part of it. I can teach them process, systems, procedure. I can't teach character. And when people start with character and they're doing it for the right reasons, you'd be surprised what they can accomplish. Sometimes they don't even know what they can accomplish until you unleash what they really have, and then it's extraordinary. That is my greatest gratification, to see people not only have dignity and self-respect and be pillars in their communities, but what kind of fathers they become, what kind of husbands they become, what kind of wives they become, because they're doing it under their terms. We tell people, you talk about all in, you have to be all in. If you're going to compete in this world, you have to be all in. And all in means your heart has to be all in too.
When you are all in, as Paul Porter obviously is in Premier Pools, so much happens. That's when we find that extra something that we have in the tank, and it sounds like you've done that. We're going to ask you to stick around, Paul, and we're going to talk more about how do you decide when to go all in and what does all in mean to Paul Porter. We're going to do that a little bit later in the show, but when we return, I'm going to bring in Lance Loveday. He is the president of the Entrepreneurs Organization. He's also the founder and CEO of Closed Loop. Join the revolution at HaneyBiz.com, courtesy of Audi Rockland. This is the HaneyBiz Project.
Welcome back to Mark Haney, igniting the entrepreneurial revolution with the HaneyBiz Project.
Welcome back to the HaneyBiz Project, brought to you courtesy of Hub International. I'm Mark Haney, and today I am here with Lance Loveday, CEO of Closed Loop, but he is also the president of the Entrepreneurs Organization of Sacramento. How you doing, Lance?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Thank you, and welcome back. You've been on the show in the past. I want to break our discussion up into at least two segments. One, I want to talk about your business because it's very significant, but I'd also like to talk about EO. Let's talk about Closed Loop and the Closed Loop enterprise. What's that looking like today?
Today, I have narrowed things down, and we are the best in the world at one thing, finally. Last year, this time, I was doing 4 different things, and it was a little too much.
Okay.
Now, I focused down, and we are a digital advertising agency helping medium and large companies spending 30 grand and up per month realize massive profit from advertising on Google and Facebook and Bing and other online properties.
So you have the big guys. How much of your business is here in Sacramento versus around the country?
That's a good question. You know, only, maybe about 10%. You know, but we've got a couple big name clients. We've got Consolidated Communications,
okay,
and Rabobank out of
nice.
They've got a California operation. We're working with them, and one other local, but most of it is Bay Area, high tech, that kind of stuff.
Now, in terms of focus, how did you decide to sort of narrow that focus? Because a lot of us, guys like me, I think I have like 13 companies I'm invested in, I don't know, lots of others. My focus is not so good. How do you do it?
Well, you know, I finally realized I was spreading myself too thin, and you know, you've built a team around yourself, and you know, you're able to be successful doing a lot of different things. And for myself, you know, I was biting off more than I could chew, and I realized I was doing a lot of things and none of them well.
Okay.
And I needed to focus in and become the best at something and really knock one thing out of the park before I went on to the next thing. And so it's been a real transformation over the last year to get there, but coming out the other side of it now, and God, I'm just so much more free and focused, and everyone in the organization is rowing in the same direction, and I'm energized, man.
That's great. Okay, now how do you help Consolidated Communications or Rabobank or any of these other larger entities that have the big marketing spend? What do you do? What's your role?
Well, Closed Loop, we manage those digital ad campaigns, and those digital ad campaigns are kind of powered by a complex system. I compare it to like the Matrix from the movies, right? When you've got a really complex system, some of the rules can be bent and some of them can be broken.
Yeah.
And if you really know what you're doing, you can run circles around everybody else, because these advertising campaigns are in an auction-driven environment. And
Right.
if you know how to really increase the efficiencies of those, you can, you can just do so well, and you can defy the laws of economics a little bit. And so we actually have, for all of our clients, we've managed to really increase their sales volume while maintaining and sometimes also increasing their ROI. And usually there's a trade-off between those things, but we are able to do both at the same time. And so for me, I joke around it's like I get to manage the coolest hedge fund in the world, but in a world where insider trading is totally legal. It's fun, right? So we have a lot of fun.
Helping with that advertising spend and doing the analytics. So you mentioned ROI, return on investment. How do you measure the return on a marketing campaign?
Well, a lot of different ways, and you get to the core of what enables us to be successful is making sure we've got the right tracking systems in place and things instrumented and all these different systems tied together. Because when you can do that, for us, it's one thing to track through and see, how much are you spending to drive a lead, and for a lead in a marketing sense, leads are not all created equal, right?
Right.
But the way that most people measure it, they treat it like it is, right? And they say, if I can get to $40 cost per lead, I'm happy, right?
Right.
Well, the reality is there might be some more expensive traffic you can buy over here, and you might be willing to pay $100 per lead because those leads close at a higher rate, have a higher average value or so on, right?
Right.
But you don't know that, so you've got to treat everything the same. What we try to do with our clients is stitch these systems together so we can blend that data on the back end and do these look backs and say, you know what? That traffic we thought was too expensive, it's worth it, and we should be maxing that out. And that traffic that was cheap and those cheap leads we were buying, turns out it was cheap for a reason, and we need to not be buying that. And so when you have that intelligence, you can start to outperform, and that's how you run circles around your competition.
Do you work backwards from the cost of acquiring the customer, acquiring the lead, or getting the eyeballs? I mean, at which point do you start? Where's the starting point?
It's a good point. I mean, so it starts with the targeting and targeting the right people to begin with, because sometimes we'll audit these campaigns and it's kind of fun and sometimes kind of funny. We'll get to show people and say, hey, did you know you're serving ads for people who are, say, searching on this given keyword? And to go, oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So we audited HP's campaigns years ago, and I think the statute of limitations on this is up, so I can share it. But we found out that they were advertising on the keyword digital camera, and you go, hey, that makes sense. They were selling digital cameras at the time, right? But because of how they were targeting that ad, they were allowing Google to match that to anything they wanted, right? And so they were showing up for some inappropriate terms, babe cams and the so on, right? And so to get up in front of the HP exec team and say, did you know that you wasted $40,000 last month on the term babe cam, which isn't real good for your brand, by the way, either. So you're wasting money and damaging your brand. And, it's a simple tweak to fix that. And a lot of organizations, they're letting Google and some of these other platforms spend the money for them because it's so easy to do. And we get to help them come in and empower them and say, you know what? There's a smarter way to do this, and you just need to take more control and assert yourself a little bit, and you can really outperform if you do. Well,
the subject of today's show is going all in, knowing when to go all in. Obviously, you've refocused Closed Loop, and you're putting more of your chips, so to speak, in the digital marketing component with the enterprise solutions. But you brought the term all in to the Sacramento Entrepreneurs Organization. You are the president of Sacramento EO. And thinking about, switching gears to be talking about our organization, because I am a part of this, talk to us about what the Entrepreneurs Organization is all about. And why did you use the term all in to describe the way that we are as entrepreneurs?
Sure. Let me start by just defining what EO is, because it's so easy for us to just start going deep and assume everybody knows what it is, and I realize they don't. But so at a high level, what EO is, think of there being three components, right? I mean, as you know, at the most personal individual level, there is the small group forum where you get paired up with other similar entrepreneurs and with the goal of kind of making each other better, right? And learning from each other in this peer-to-peer learning environment. And that becomes your sisters and brothers in entrepreneurship, right?
Right.
Then there's the chapter as a whole, the Sacramento chapter, and we do fun things as a chapter. Last week, we went up to Reno and toured the Tesla Gigafactory,
It was fun, yeah.
That
it
was
had a blast,
cool.
yeah.
And the Switch data center. And
great learning opportunity.
yeah, that was kind of mind-blowing stuff. And I have a cool photo of you there, by the way.
Let's keep that between us.
Well, fair enough.
What happens in Reno stays in Reno, right?
Is that the deal? Okay, yeah. You're crossing the Nevada state line. You're just...
So you got the forum, you got the chapter, and there's more.
Right. Then there's the global community that you get exposed to as well, and global events, right? So, this is a chapter, this is an organization that has 12,000 members globally in well over 100 countries, and you get to go to these global events and meet entrepreneurs from all over the world. And just by virtue of going to these events, I've had just amazing adventures with my family that I never would have had otherwise. I mean, Greece, Thailand, Germany last year, and it's pretty amazing to talk with entrepreneurs, not just in, the local region or the state of the country, but
take
around the world.
one of these trips and you're not, a family vacation is cool and you can bring your family to a lot of these, but you're doing it around other driven entrepreneurs and their families, and it's kind of a cool bonding thing to meet with people who have information that we don't have maybe necessarily at hand here in Sacramento. You get to meet those people from around the world.
Yeah, you get to do that, and then you get to make connections with them, and you get back and you introduce them to other people in your network that and it's kind of cool. I helped this snack food manufacturer in Kenya.
Huh.
That's
great.
That's awesome and fun. And, I hooked him up with another EO guy, actually. And other people have helped me similarly around the world via this network. It's a
cool organization. And, you brought all in the term. When you're trying to decide how much to bet, there are times in the game when you go all in. Why is Sacramento EO the all-in forum or the all-in chapter?
Well, some of it has to do with just how we're wired as entrepreneurs. We tend not to do things in a halfway manner, right? So, I think that's partially why I chose that theme and why that spoke to me. But also, too, I thought back to my own decision path and why I joined EO, and I was kind of tentative going in. But then at some point, it kind of flipped for me, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna commit to this fully and see what happens. And so I took a little list this morning of the different outcomes that I've had from EO, and I was running through it, and I was thinking, wow, that's a bet that's paid off. So, the goal of EO, as I said, is trying to make each other better and surround yourself with amazing people. And I am a believer that you become the average of the 5 or so people you hang out most with.
Yeah.
And I love that my EO people are the people that I want to be most like, and so I get that access. But from a business perspective, what EO has done for me, I've rebooted my whole business, as I said, in the last year on EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I've saved over $100,000 on taxes as a direct result of advice I got from my EO brothers and sisters and our sponsors. More so on a personal level, I'm living more in alignment with my values, as Paul was talking about. I've revamped my personal finances completely. I've traveled the world and had these amazing adventures with my family in amazing places. I've improved my outlook, and I'm aiming higher and thinking bigger. And I've improved my habits daily, my eating, exercise, my daily rituals and discipline. I'm just doing things at a much higher level. I know you're a pretty famous early riser yourself.
Well, I like to get up early and go all in now and then.
Yeah. And, I've got these people that I'm accountable to. I don't want to show up next month at Forum and have the same problems I had last month. I want to report back and show that I've made some progress, right?
Well, I'm going to have to cut you off there. We're going to bring Paul back on after the break, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what it means to go all in. This is an entrepreneurial radio show, and we're helping the next guy in line. You know, we've done some things that have been very fun, and now it's how do we share that information with the rest of the entrepreneurs, the people who want to be business owners right here in Sacramento. When we return, we'll bring back Paul Porter and Lance Loveday. Join the revolution at HaneyBiz.com, courtesy of the Entrepreneurs Organization of Sacramento and law firm Greenberg Traurig. This is the HaneyBiz Project.
And now back to the HaneyBiz Project with investorpreneur Mark Haney.
Welcome back to the HaneyBiz Project, brought to you courtesy of accounting firm Clifton Larson Allen. I'm Mark Haney, and today I am rejoined by Paul Porter, and of course we have along Lance Loveday. These guys have built businesses. They know about going all in, and it's not always easy to know when to go all in. Is it, Paul? We're here with Paul Porter, Premier Pool and Spa. You've built this $200 million plus enterprise, but there's times when you need to hunker down, and there's times when you need to go all in. How do you make those kind of decisions, Paul?
You know, this is such a great topic, and timing is perfect. Last year, we have a summit meeting because we have offices from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon. The topic of our summit meeting was all in. And the purpose of being all in is you have to realize we're a brand. When people see Premier Pools, they envision a certain way of doing business, a certain style, a certain quality, a certain reputation. And you can't get there unless you follow a system. You can't, we want people to bring their own initiative, we want their own heart, their own desire. But when the customer is buying a Big Mac, they have to buy a Big Mac. The special sauce, if it's left off, it's not a Big Mac. And that's the real challenging thing. And so our topic of discussion was you can't partially be in. You first and foremost have to be customer intimate.
Okay.
And second of all, you got to make sure that whether they buy in Portland, Oregon or Portland, Maine, they're buying at Premier Pools and they have certain idea and a vision of what they're going to get, and we have to deliver. So all in to me is me being just absolutely diligent and committed to processes, systems, and procedure. So when people refer, and this is a big referral type of business, I mean, we're building people's dreams out there, that they know that not only I'm talking about the quality of product, but the quality of experience has to be the same.
So we talk about when to go all in. Paul's talking about when you've got the processes, you've got the focus on the customer. That's pretty good timing when you have something that's a product that maybe is differentiated and special and you're focused on it. But I mean, just from a larger strategic point of view, Lance, how do you decide when to narrow that focus like you did? What kinds of things, what kind of signals happen that say, hey, now it's time to narrow the focus and go all in here on the digital marketing versus spreading yourself through so many areas?
Well, you know, I think it's when you've got a chance to really be among the best in the world at something. Okay. You know, and for us, we saw that opportunity with digital advertising. It is somewhat of a commoditized marketplace out there, but we realized we were doing something different, and we were driving different kinds of results than most people, most agencies, and no one had really staked that claim. So it was available to us. It was something we fundamentally believed we could pursue and go after, and we had reason to believe. You know, it wasn't just a gut feel or a speculative venture. You know, I heard Reid Hoffman say that, starting a company is like jumping off a cliff and building the plane on the way down, right? And my first thought in reaction to that was, well, it better be a high cliff, you know?
Yeah, you need some time.
Yeah, and I worry that sometimes people jump off a low cliff, and there's not enough time to build that plane,
Yes. And sometimes we test, and then you focus, and it sounds to me like you found something that was working, and then that was the time to redouble your efforts. And so many times we may risk it all on something that's not proven, right? And that can be a little bit dangerous, right? I always say go all in on what you know, but sometimes it takes a few thousand hours to determine what you know to be true. But there's also times, Paul, and maybe you were there, I'm not sure, when you have nothing to lose, right? And so going all in just means, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. I'm going all in to work today, even though I can't predict what might happen day after tomorrow. I'm not sure.
You know, you're right. And I think all in also happens when you're in uncharted waters. You know, we're not a little bit larger. We're 4 times the size of anybody else in the entire industry. So it's our job to vanguard an industry and do things that nobody's ever done before. So if you're going to do that, you have to go all in, because what you're trying to do is change the game. You're trying to get not only the people in the organization to think differently, but the consumers to view your company differently. So all in means that there's a lot of experimentation, a lot of unproven things that you're working with. And if you're not all in, you're sending a tepid message to the people that are following you.
You bet.
They need to know that if we're going to hit that wall, we need to hit that wall full steam ahead. And if we bounce off, we're going to take a step back and we're going to go around it. But we're going to first of all, we're going to hit it full steam ahead.
And you know, when we think about entrepreneurship, it's about building these businesses. But as the entrepreneur goes, many times, so goes the business. So you're thinking about how you allocate your resources. You being the from a human standpoint, you're the guy that people are following. How do you decide how to allocate your own resources? What's all in look like for Paul Porter on a daily basis?
It's easy for me because I'm not the smartest guy in the room.
Okay.
But I can assure you, I definitely surround myself with the smartest guys in the room. I get motivated and inspired by the people that buy into what we're trying to accomplish, and it's allowed us to go out and when we bring in IT guys, we don't go in there in the swimming pool industry, we go to Silicon Valley. And we bring in IT guys not because they can make more money in Sacramento, because they want a different standard of living. Yeah. They want a different type of life. They believe in our vision and our dream. So we've been very, very fortunate to be able to go out and get the best people, and they lift me up on my shoulders. So I only go all in and understanding the promise of a quality life that I can bring the people that I surround myself with.
One of the things that happens, I think, when we go all in, and I think a lot of people that don't yet know what going all in really feels like, but from my experience, going all in is a time when there's usually some discomfort, maybe some pain, and I always think to myself, what kind of pain do I like? Do I like the pain that comes with going all in, or do I want the pain of not having it work out so well because I know deep down inside I did not put forth the effort? So Lance, thinking about you, what does all in look like for Lance Loveday on a daily basis? Is there pain involved? Is there any kind of discomfort?
Yeah, and that's how you know you're growing.
Okay.
So I think you have to embrace that, and you have to fight your instincts, and you have to not let yourself get comfortable. And I'm, kind of for an example, I'm in the middle of that right now. I've put myself in charge of sales, and I'm more of an introverted person. I'm not a natural-born salesperson. In fact, after this interview, I'm gonna have to go rock in the corner for a little bit and just recover. But
I'll give you a hug.
Oh, thank you.
It'll be all right.
I appreciate that. But I'm gonna challenge myself, and actually, some of my EO friends and mentors challenged me. They said, "You need to get in play," and so they said, "You go park yourself in the Bay Area for 3 weeks, book 5 appointments a day for 5 days a week, and make that happen." And as soon as I'm hearing this, I'm like, "Oh God, I don't want to do that. Yeah, that's uncomfortable for me, right?" But I also knew in my mind, because I don't want to do it. There's this emotional side of me that doesn't want to do it. The rational side of me is saying, yeah, that makes sense. You need to do that.
Yeah, I talk to people occasionally about, what's your sales force look like? Well, I don't really have much of a sales force. Well, if you look around your company and you don't see much of a sales force, well, guess what? It's you, right? And Lance, it sounds like, and I don't know that much about your sales force, but there's nobody that can move mountains or move molecules more typically than the CEO. And it sounds like you've embraced that pain a little bit.
Amen.
All right. Well, congratulations on that, Lance, and on embracing the pain. And Paul, I want to congratulate you too as building one of the most significant companies in Sacramento right now, right? The largest pool company in Sacramento. A lot of people see the premier trucks around, but you guys are all over the United States, and we really appreciate you sharing your story today. Lance, thank you for sharing your story. Marcus, who are we recognizing today, young man?
We are going to recognize Audi of Rockland for bringing the top-notch vehicles to the Sacramento area. Thanks so much for you do for all of us entrepreneurs and what you do for our show.
Yeah, you betcha. Thank you, Audi Rockland. Thank you, Entrepreneurs Organization, Ethan Conrad Property, Stiefel Financial. And next week, we're going to have a great show. We're going to have Kurt Rocca and Roger Akers, some venture capital guys coming on, talking about how to invest in people, also talking about how to invest here in our community. This is the HaneyBiz Project, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Welcome back for Mark's takeaways from today's HaneyBiz Project.
Welcome back to HaneyBiz Project, brought to you courtesy of Silver's HR, Mark Haney. And today we've been talking about going all in. You know, when you're trying to decide how much to bet, and it's kind of scary sometimes, but when the time is right, Marcus, you take all the chips and you put them out in the middle of the table, and that is not easy. Now, I'm back here with Marcus Haney. We've been talking about going all in. Takeaways from today, we've had Lance and Paul talking about their stories of betting big.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, from Lance, I love the fact that he talked about how he took his businesses from a couple of years ago and decided to consolidate down to something he could focus on and really go all in on that opportunity. I think that's really good knowledge for growing entrepreneurs out there who, like myself, who tend to get themselves in a couple different ponds, and you always want to go home to where you can feed. And also, Paul, he said something about knowing when to go all in is when you're in uncharted waters. And I think that's kind of an interesting point of view. And it's like, okay, I've never been here before. What's it going to be like to go all in?
To get it together quick, go all in.
Get it on or get out, right?
And I liked also what Paul said about investing into people with heart, right? Entrepreneurs, he looks at their heart maybe first before some of the other characteristics. And I thought that was that's so important, and I think it's the people out there who have found a way to kind of tap into that, the heart, if you will, and dig a little bit deeper, withstand a little bit of that pain, right? Because it's when you get into that area of your project, of your life that's not so comfortable, that's when the magic happens. That's when you discover what I call the truth, right? That's when you discover what you're made of. And I think so many times we tend to kind of shy away from those things. It's like starting to get a little hard. Maybe it's time to back off a little bit. Well, maybe it's time to dig in a little bit deeper when you start to feel that pain, because the pain, it never lasts for that long. Right. And it seems like right after the pain starts, right after a little while, it always goes away. And I always feel better at the end of it because I've withstood the pain. And chances are I got a little stronger. I have for sure made some discoveries about myself. And we're talking about high school football at the beginning of the show and thinking about how so often we learn out there on the high school football field. Because in high school football, like a lot of sports, but it's an opportunity to go all in. But when you're going all in high school football, it's like going to war with your buddies, right? You're going all in. It's the ultimate team sport. And you have to go all in. It is a full contact sport, much like entrepreneurship. And so my story today is about a time when I discovered that I wasn't quite going all in. It happened in high school football. It was my freshman year, and we were 1-3, and we were out there on a Friday morning or Friday afternoon practice. The varsity played on Friday night. We played on Thursday night, and we had just gotten our butts kicked 47-0, and we were running sprints, and we had been running sprints for like 20 minutes straight. We were in trouble, and it was, this one's for Haney. For some reason, the coach was blaming it on me, and what had happened was earlier, before practice, Coach Poole, this man of a coach, right, this big grizzly type football coach had moved down to freshman, and he's saying, okay, guys, I don't think you want to play football, so I think you need to take your pads off and go home this weekend and think about whether you want to play football again. Because what I saw last night, getting beat 47-0 by Placer, you don't seem like you guys want to play football. So you go home and you think about it. And I looked at Mr. Poole, and he looked at me, and I said, you know, Coach, you raised my hand. He said, yeah, Haney. I said, you know what? Where I come from, you need to practice in order to get better. And going home and thinking about it doesn't make you a better football team. And he looked at me again. He said, okay, Haney. Okay, you guys, go line up on the line. He sent us out to the 40-yard line, and we ran sprints for 20, 25 minutes straight, and we were exhausted. This one's on Haney. Set, go, right? And over we ran these sprints, and we had guys that were passed out practically on the side of the field. They were exhausted, and then that's when it hit me that Coach Poole had something else in his mind. I think he wanted someone or some group to step up. We hadn't been winning, and I decided, well, maybe I should take it upon myself to step up and lead. I had been sort of the wallflower kind of guy on the football field. I happen to be the quarterback of the team, but I'm still one of those, I'd been quiet about it. So I decided, okay, hang on a second. And I sort of took over the practice, and I said, all right, you guys, stand up. And I gave the team a little pep talk about how this week we were going to be playing Marysville, and we're going to run these sprints on me. And I said, down, said, hike, 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 and we started running our sprints. And in between each sprint, I would find a way to dig a little bit deeper in my leadership ability and help lead the team a little bit. Instead of being the wallflower, I had went all in, and I had been afraid to do that. I think up to that point, I was just going through the motions, and I didn't even realize it until we were all challenged. And I think I learned something about myself. I learned that for me, my skills, they weren't so much about throwing the football as they were really to rallying the team. And I came out of my shell, and I helped rally the team. That day, we ran a lot more wind sprints. And Coach Poole let me take over from there throughout the practice. And we won the next 2 out of 3 games, but it was all because I went through the pain and maybe the fear and the embarrassment of deciding to lead. And so I think that happens to a lot of us as we approach our responsibilities as entrepreneurs. I mean, because I look back as a business person, and I can look back at my high school football career, and I can always take something away. Every time my business is stalled out, I've looked at it and I went, you know what? This is a leadership issue. And then I look I look around the company, and I'm like, I guess I'm the guy that hasn't been leading, and so I can fall back on these principles that we learn through the difficult times and through the pain. So as I think about the entrepreneurs of Sacramento, as I think about the people that want to be entrepreneurs, I mean, sometimes if I'm an employee, sometimes I got to do something as simple as, go through the pain of beating my boss to work, outwork my boss. It might be painful, but you know what? I think it might help my career, don't you think, Marcus?
Absolutely.
I mean, I've got to have the guts to step up and be the quarterback of my life. And if I'm a small business owner and I've got people relying on me, I'm betting on myself, I've got to have the courage and the strength to not be dabbling, not be spreading myself so thin, but the courage to pick something where I focus on my gifts. And you know what? God gave us some gifts, and we have to focus on those gifts. And you know what? I may not have all the skills in the world, but I've got to have the courage to go all in and be the quarterback of my company and be the quarterback of my life. And you know what? If I'm a leader of Sacramento or one of those people who wants to help our community and shape our community for entrepreneurship, I know I got to have the courage to go all in and help be. I know I'm not the self-appointed quarterback of Sacramento's entrepreneurial community, but I gotta use my microphone, maybe do a little bit of leading and do a little bit of encouraging, and I've gotta find a way to have the guts to be the quarterback I know I can be, the quarterback of my life. So I gotta say that we gotta give a Sacramento salute to two men who understand courage and what it means to go all in, Mr. Lance Loveday and Mr. Paul Porter, to the brave men and women betting their lives on our freedom, our security, and our way of life, to the 13 stripes and to the 50 stars, and to the one big American venture always worth betting on, yours. Never above you, never below you.
Always by your side.